Hey guys, welcome back to AniVox. Please drop a like and subscribe to the channel to help us keep bringing you the best anime recaps. This story takes place in Japan's Edo period, where we meet our main character, Gabimaru the Hollow. He's called that because he's cold and emotionless, a kid from the village of Iwagakure, trained from childhood in the art of killing with ninjutsu. During his last mission, he got set up by his fellow ninjas, so he ended up captured in the city and sentenced to execution. Even though he could have easily escaped, Gabimaru was tired of all the killing, so he decided to just end his life. But no execution method works on him. That's cause during his ninja training, he went through so much crap that now he's got a superhuman body. Even during beheading, the executioner hits him with a sword over and over, but in the end it just breaks without scratching his neck. Since that didn't work, the magistrate ordered them to burn him at the stake. Even though it's a classic and brutal execution, those flames aren't enough to take Gabimaru out either. After each failed attempt, a girl named Yamada Azuman Sagiri visits Gabimaru's cell to question him and keep a record of his case, so they can tally up how much it costs to finally kill him. Gabimaru answers all her questions, and each time he makes it clear he ain't trying to resist. In one chat, Gabimaru tells her he never knew his parents. Because when he was a baby, the village chief killed them. He never knew why, but he didn't care enough to want revenge either, and he doesn't have any dreams or goals. As a ninja, his only purpose was killing when ordered. Sagiri was curious how they caught him, so Gabimaru explains it was cause he tried to desert the village, and since the rules there forbid desertion, he figures the chief ordered his buddies to betray him on that last mission, and that's how the city magistrate nabbed him. As her last question, Sagiri wants to know what made him leave Iwagakure, but Gabimaru doesn't answer. The next day the guards try again to kill him, this time with dismemberment by oxen, and as expected, that flops too. Before they move on to another try, Sagiri approaches Gabimaru to ask why he resisted when the oxen pulled at his legs. But mainly, Sagiri wants the real reason for deserting Iwagakure. Even though the question doesn't exactly thrill Gabimaru, he decides to spill, telling her he was at the top of the hierarchy in Iwagakure. The chief recognized his skills, so as a reward he gave him his daughter's hand in marriage, someone he saw as an idiot who knew nothing about the world. So once they started living together, he got bored watching her do stuff like say thanks and take off her shoes at the door. He was straight with the chief who acted like he was cool with it. He just asked for one last mission, which is where they put him on a pedestal, so maybe he wasn't that cool after all. Gabimaru let the magistrate catch him, otherwise the Iwagakure ninjas would chase him forever, so he figured it was better to just give up on life. Right after his answer, Sagiri doesn't say anything else. That night, one of the guards warns the girl to be careful with this prisoner, since Gabimaru's nickname is the Hollow, and it means exactly what it sounds like. He thinks Gabimaru's an empty person, no emotions or empathy, but also a monster who easily killed 20 men when they captured him. And not just that, they say Iwagakure ninjas are immortal thanks to the elixir of life, a paradise potion that grants eternal youth. The next day they try killing Gabimaru again, this time with boiling oil, and he survives that too. The magistrate's beyond frustrated not getting rid of him, so as a last resort, Sagiri will handle killing him. Right after taking Gabimaru to the execution spot, the magistrate reveals to the kid that Sagiri ain't just an investigator. She's a swordswoman from the famous executioner family called Yamada Azuman. A famous clan that's been testing swords and executing death row inmates with one clean strike for generations, so now the girl's in charge of granting his wish to die. Gabimaru's surprised that even as a woman, she's part of the Yamadas, but Sagiri says she doesn't care, and jumps to the main point, telling him by government order, she'll carry out his execution. Gabimaru senses this opponent's tricky, so he gears up too. Every time Sagiri tries to slice his throat, Gabimaru keeps dodging. The girl sees it and says she gets what he's going through. He really loves his wife and that's his reason to live. Her words drive Gabimaru nuts and he attacks her, cause Sagiri nailed it spot on. Gabimaru was totally in love with his wife, and she's the only person he's ever felt anything for. That's his real story. He realized his beloved didn't want him as a killer, so he decided to quit that life for a peaceful one with her. But when he told the chief, he got betrayed and handed over to the authorities to die. When he realized escaping wouldn't help, and they'd never let him be happy without killing, he tried convincing himself he's truly emotionless, but now Sagiri's telling him it's possible. Right after, she shows him an official pardon from the shogunate, absolving any criminal of their crimes and granting shogun protection. With the shogun's power, neither the magistrate nor Iwagakure ninjas can chase him, but nothing's free in life. The only condition for the pardon is traveling to the land of immortals to find the elixir of life. Legends say this paradise is in the southwestern sea, beyond the Ryukyu kingdom, where after tons of searching, the shogunate finally found it, but of the 6 expeditions sent to the island for the elixir, none came back. So the shogun ordered sending worthless death row criminals, with the reward of full pardon for whoever brings back the elixir of life. To seal the deal, Sagiri tells him before coming to the city, she learned his wife's still in Iwagakure. Since he got locked up, she's been sad and not talking to anyone, just waiting to see her husband again. The girl's words get cut off by the magistrate, who wants to follow the shogun's wishes but ain't willing to let this criminal walk. At that moment, Gabimaru feels more alive than ever, so he uses his fire ninjutsu to take out all the guards. Now the kid's down for anything, so he accepts Sagiri's deal, swearing he'll come back with the elixir and see his wife again. When Sagiri was little, she watched one of her dad's executions. This time it was a comedian criminal who asked to tell one last story while getting executed. Her dad was cool with it, no problem, cause his sword skills were so perfect that the comedian finished his tale right after his head got chopped off. He died without even realizing he'd been beheaded. That was the ideal cut, no pain or agony. Ever since she saw that, Sagiri's goal was to nail that perfect cut, but despite all her effort and training, her cuts were full of doubt and fear, making the criminals die in a ton of pain. And on her sword, Sagiri could see the reflections of their suffering right when they died, which helped her realize she needed something more, a heart that could kill without hesitation, since fear makes the sword heavier and causes the condemned to suffer. Back to the present, by order of the shogun Tokugawa, they rounded up all the strongest and most dangerous criminals known for their crimes to join this expedition. When they're brought before the shogun, one of the guards explains the mission is to sail to the land of immortals and find the elixir of life, and whoever brings it back gets pardoned for all their crimes. Turns out among the crowd there's this semi-fan of Gabimaru. At first she was hyped to meet him, but that excitement turns to disappointment real quick, cause not only is Gabimaru short but he's also skinny and looks like a junkie. Back to the main point, the criminals aren't about to risk their lives for some nonsense stories, so to show them they're serious, one of the guards tells them to uncover their faces, revealing the only samurai who came back alive from the last expedition. The guy was completely covered in flowers and branches growing out of his body. Even though he wasn't dead, he couldn't be called alive either, all he did was mumble nonsense with a creepy smile on his face. The guard says when he returned, the samurai had lumps all over, and the next day they bloomed into flowers. The other 60 expedition members never came back. They don't know exactly what happened on the island, that's why they picked these guys to explore it. All the criminals get pissed, cause nobody told them this was a suicide mission they knew jack shit about. Before they start a riot, the guard says no more explanations, and don't worry, joining the mission is totally voluntary, which was bullshit cause when one tried to leave, he got executed by a Yamada member. Everyone's shocked by what just went down, so the guard keeps explaining that yeah, they can refuse to go to the island, but walking out means death. They shouldn't forget they're all condemned criminals, and even if they go to the island, they'll still be treated like animals. Right after landing, each gets assigned a Yamada monitor, and since their executions are already set, that doesn't change on the island. If they try to escape they'll get beheaded on the spot, and if their monitors die by accident, they'll get executed too, and even if they manage to run they'll be found. After wrapping up, the guard by shogun order tells them they're thinning the herd before leaving, and the shogun watches the massacre and the old creeps loving every bit. Among the criminals there are folks with superhuman skills, like this blonde guy, the fan from before, the black-haired one, a giant, and Gabimaru, who to the shogun's surprise is standing totally still. At the same time Aza, Sagiri's superior, notices the girl's horrified by the scene, so to toughen her up he says the fight she's watching will be even worse once they're on the island. Aza admits he doubts she'll pull off the mission, not just the mission, but she's not cut out for this job just cause she's a woman. As a samurai's daughter, she should live a peaceful life in a mansion. Even though those words obviously bug her, Sagiri chills out and tells her boss if she could she would have already, but her family besides testing swords on human bodies and beheading criminals, makes pills from corpses. Even if they're not executioners, anyone born into the Yamada Azuman family lives off others' deaths, so they're hated by people, making a normal life impossible in her family. Then some criminals attack them trying to escape, Sagiri's still hesitating. Even though she executes the 3 criminals clean, the fear keeps eating at her. Right then Gabimaru tells her nobody can stay calm killing people. He asks the guards to switch up the selection method. For his part he'd rather not kill. The guard's response to his humble suggestion is telling the other criminals whoever kills him gets a free pass to the boat. So Gabimaru tries reasoning with these animals, but fails again, so he has no choice but to do what he does best. The bad part is every time he kills, the executioner's darkness consumes his heart and mind, something that hits anyone who's ever killed another. It leaves him with a heavy inner load, but he ain't letting them kill him either, so since he wiped out several he got put front and center. After a while the guards stop the fight, and pick the 10 surviving criminals, including Gabimaru. Then they assign each an Azuman, to board that same day for the mysterious southern sea island. Right on arriving at the island, what greets our duo is a landscape full of flowers, the same ones growing on that samurai we saw before. Sagiri's still doubting the elixir exists, but Gabimaru tells her it's real. As a kid he saw the Iwagakure chief stab himself with swords like it was nothing. From what he heard, he got that way thanks to a drug from a far-off land. Gabimaru realizes the place looks peaceful, but it's hiding danger inside, so he doesn't agree to staying tied up the whole way. Sagiri wants to follow rules, so she tells him to tie himself back up. Gabimaru says it's a dumb rule, just like only getting food for 3 days, and their only clue to the immortality fruit is a tangerine drawing. The disagreement with Sagiri sparks an argument that makes them drop their guard. Suddenly Gabimaru gets attacked, but dodges most of it, just tweaking his neck a bit. The one behind it is Kuno, a warrior monk obsessed with weapons. His plan is killing the weak ones, then hunting the elixir easy. The Azeman in charge of Kuno is Kisho, who doesn't stop him fighting Gabimaru as long as he follows rules. Kisho tells Sagiri they're just criminal monitors, and she shouldn't care if they kill each other. Faced with dying or killing, Gabimaru picks the latter. Before starting the fight, Sagiri doesn't forget to pass him the rope to tie his hands, which buys Gabimaru a little time Kuno spends breaking weapons on his body. Gabimaru's impatient to finish his mission and get back to his wife, so he quickly ends Kuno. Now that his criminal's dead, Kisho grabs his head to head back to the boat. Before leaving he warns Sagiri to watch out, not just for Gabimaru but everyone on the island. Among the criminals some will try killing the others make alliances just to ditch them later. And the shogunate knew that, but they don't care if these criminals break some rules, cause their priority is getting the immortality fruit. Kisho tells them the shogunate hired Iwagakure shinobi, so they'll likely run into them. Lastly, Kisho reveals to Sagiri that there are rumors the next Azeman head will be decided by this mission, so she should watch her own comrades and family too. When the guy leaves, the duo starts doubting each other, which makes Gabimaru try killing Sagiri. He sees her as a burden, and wants to find the fruit before Iwagakure shows up. Right then we see a flashback of Gabimaru's parents' death. They died by the village chief's hand, even though both were high-ranking ninjas. What happened is they wanted to desert cause of their son's birth. After finishing them, the chief decided to raise the kid. From a young age the chief taught him having feelings just makes you weak, and if you're not strong, you can't protect what's important. Back to the fight. Even with tons of chances to kill Sagiri, Gabimaru always hesitates, cause of what his wife said about following your feelings. And truth is he doesn't want to kill her, but if he lets feelings affect him, he won't survive this place. Still, when it's time for the final blow, his wife's memory won't let him. Seeing he stopped, Sagiri realizes Gabimaru really doesn't want to kill. Every time he executes someone his face fills with suffering, so she tells him feelings ain't a weakness, they're the truest source of strength. Following what you feel to the end is real strength, words his wife said too. Sagiri doesn't stop there. She says if he really wants his life back, she wants to witness his change, and asks him to let her stay by his side to see it. We switch scenes hard, and meet the duo of Tamiya, a huge swordsman nicknamed the Sword Dragon, and Fuchi, a guy obsessed with dissecting corpses. Just like Kuno, he plans killing the weak then hunting the elixir. When they head into the forest to start the plan, Tamiya gets stung by a butterfly on his hand. When he looks close, he sees it's got a human face. Remembering the samurai's state, he immediately cuts off his hand, then goes for the butterfly. The guys watch as Tamiya's hand turns into branches and flowers. Worse, they're surrounded by butterflies, bugs, and weird-shaped giants. At the same time, our duo runs into a giant, a mix of fish and human. Gabimaru remembers the 5th shinobi rule the village chief taught him: don't fight an opponent whose nature you don't know. Still, while Gabimaru is confused if he should run alone or take Sagiri, he gets attacked by the fish, ending up wounded and bleeding. Since that's not normal, Gabimaru knows they gotta run. But they can't, cause right then they're surrounded by more giants. Gabimaru gears up to fight, activating his beast mode and using his fireman ninjutsu, killing every one of the giants that surrounded them. Now Sagiri's just standing there watching, totally dropping her guard, so she's an easy target for a centipede. That doesn't escape Gabimaru's notice, but he's torn between saving the girl or beating the enemy, and right then he remembers Sagiri's words, so he lets his feelings decide, and ends up saving the girl. Gabimaru is surprised by his own reaction. Right then someone finishes off the last fish giant. Turns out it's the group made up of Yuzuriha, the fan from before, and 2 Azeman. When asked what they want, Yuzuriha asks Gabimaru if he doesn't want to team up with them, so he says as a good married man, he first turns down her advances before even thinking about accepting. Sagiri asks why there are 2 Azeman with 1 criminal. Genji Yamada tells her that at first he was assigned to Makaya, but when they ran into Yuzuriha he saw how she seduced him, so he figured 1 executioner wasn't enough to watch her. Truth is Genji's weakness is women, and Yuzuriha already seduced him. As for the other one, his name's Senta. Getting back to the alliance talk, Yuzuriha tells Gabimaru if he accepts and pitches in with his strength, she'll give them info, like for example, she tells them they shouldn't just watch out for the monsters, cause the bugs are the most dangerous. The centipedes are gross but not carnivorous, and as for the other bugs, they don't attack unless bothered. Yuzuriha knows all this thanks to Makaya, cause right after seducing him, she used him as a lab rat, made him mess with all the island bugs, and when he wasn't useful anymore, she faked being dead so he'd drop his guard and she could kill him, or at least that's what she told him. Gabamaru doesn't buy it, cause with simple questions he realizes, the girl's a compulsive liar, even though he tries to drag the truth out of her. Yuzuriha doesn't say squat, so Gabamaru doesn't push anymore, and accepts forming an alliance with them, but not to be a team, because he needs to gather info, when they least expect it one will betray the other. While they're talking, Sagiri passes out, cause she got hit by the butterfly's poison. On the other hand, we learn the story of Chobe, the self-proclaimed bandit king, and Toma, his little brother, where when his brother got caught and locked up, he became an Azeman in just a month. Cause apparently that clan or whatever goes beyond a family. The original plan was to get a job in the prison where his brother was and bust him out, so when they meet again, he fills his brother in and tells him they'll never chase them if they pull it off. Even though they could have escaped right then, Chobe doesn't think twice and decides to go for that prize. Toma ain't surprised, cause he's always admired his brother's ability to adapt to any situation. That's been happening since they were kids. When they lost their parents and got kidnapped by bandits, Chobe adapted and over the years became the leader. Even when surrounded by authorities, Chobe found a way for him to escape, and then from inside jail break him out. That's why Toma sees his brother as the strongest person ever, the one who'll always find a way to survive, like right now. Even surrounded by giants, his brother found a way to destroy them all with their own weapons. Chobe's down to slaughter as many beings as get in his way, to finally find the elixir and drink it between them, and now the key is worrying about taking out the strong ones. Back to the main group, after Sagiri wakes up, she finds herself with the unexpected scene of all her companions working together to reach the goal, even Gabamaru, who's the one in the biggest hurry. Now that everyone's awake, they hold a meeting to share the info they have. Gabamaru tells them that while scouting the island for food, he didn't find anything like a tangerine around, so they shouldn't just focus on finding a fruit. The elixir of immortality could be something else, or hidden on the island. The fact that the giants they just killed have no internal organs confirms the elixir's existence on the island, but to find it they gotta focus on investigating these monsters, to know where and how they live, and if someone put them there. Later Genji suggests to Sagiri that she head back to Japan, and that now he'll handle watching Gabamaru. As a maiden of the Yamada clan, her duty is to marry the next head. Genji acknowledges her sword technique is excellent, but what they need here is brute strength, and as a woman she's already hit her limit. Their talk gets cut off by Senta, who tells them almost all the samurais who entered the island couldn't leave it. Not even with a boat they're sure they can escape. That's cause the sea currents only go toward the island. That's exactly what Tenza and Nurugai, another duo, are figuring out. Nurugai notices the issue, so tells her partner to stop rowing, and let the current guide them. After a while they run into a group of boats. Tenza thinks they're the ones who escaped, but getting closer they realize they're all boats that tried leaving the island. Not only that, but their arrival also alerts the sea beasts that live there. While the kids flee from those creatures' attacks, Nurugai thinks this is her punishment, for committing the mistake of leading the shogunate samurais to her village, cause when they saw they were emissure, people living free without obeying the shogun, they massacred her village. She was gonna get executed right after interrogation, but Tenza showed up one day in her cell, and offered her a way out of her problem. He didn't want to see an innocent girl die like that. Back to the present, Nurugai had given up and accepted dying as punishment, but Tenza wouldn't allow it, and while fighting with what strength he had left, asks her if she really wants to die. Nurugai realizes no, her wish is to get back to the mountain, so Tenza hands her a sword, and tells her to cling to life. Both escape in a lifeboat they arrived on the island with. While cleaning off the battle blood, Tenza discovers Nurugai's a woman. Back with Sagiri, Senta was begging her not to leave, cause even though Genji's kinda right, he thinks she's the only one who can control Gabamaru. In his opinion Gabamaru now is different, so he'd feel better if she stayed. Senta was right, cause later, Gabamaru not only asks the girl how she's feeling, but also apologizes for attacking her, and thanks her for helping him see the situation better. Gabamaru tells her even if he runs into the Iwagakure ninjas, he won't run like he planned, he'll face them head on. Sagiri tells him he's really strong for making that decision, but the kid cuts her off and says she's even stronger. Willpower affects a warrior's heart and technique, and when he met her, he could see intense strength in her. Since the girl didn't seem convinced, he uses a saying from his village. You need to go through a lot of experiences to know your true strength. Thanks to those words, Sagiri makes a decision. The next day she tells Genji she's not leaving the island, not for the mission, but cause she wants to decide for herself, and show everyone a woman can be a samurai, and that's why she wants him to stop looking down on her. Genji wasn't cool with her decision and her attitude, but suddenly they're interrupted by Rokuroda, the giant of bison. That giant with one blow rips off Genji's right side, and sends him flying. Sagiri still tries healing him, but that's impossible. With what little he can say, Genji begs her to run, but no need cause Gabamaru shows up right then, and saves their lives. Still his kick doesn't do any damage to Roku. Since he tanked the hit, Gabamaru asks Yuzuriha for help who's watching from a tree, but the girl straight up says she'll just cheer him on. So while Gabamaru tries just not to stop breathing, Sagiri tries every way to stop Genji's bleeding, but nothing works. Genji finally gets Sagiri's thoughts. She doesn't divide strength or weakness by male and female sides, she just accepts the challenges that come her way as her conviction, so he tells her following that conviction path, one day she'll definitely reach the light, and with that hands her his sword. Since that represents a samurai soul, Genji's leaving his in her hands. If she sees herself as a true samurai, she must behead Roku. Gabamaru for his part, realizes the giant's brute strength is bigger than his, so hand-to-hand ain't an option. When he needs help most Sagiri shows up, where she successfully cuts one of the giant's fingers. No matter how strong someone is, the Azeman can cut between tendons. Since that's the only damage they managed on Roku, the duo concludes the only way to kill him is chopping his head off, but for that they gotta reach it. Both combine their attacks to face him, but that doesn't squat. Suddenly Roku's stomach growls from hunger, making him totally lose control, and hit Gabamaru who was distracted. Even though that blow doesn't kill him, it's still close. Sagiri sees he can't get up, so she doesn't hesitate to stand in front of him to defend him. While defending him no matter how hard she tries, she can't calm her feelings, but she remembers Genji's advice, keep on the conviction path and seek emotional balance. Sagiri's 12th in the Yamada ranks, that's not just by technique level, but also how close they are to being the next head, and just for being a woman, everyone makes her life harder there, cause the truth according to Genji, is when her doubts vanish, Sagiri's techniques can surpass the first rank. The girl finally manages to stop doubting and fearing before killing, so now she just needs a chance to end Roku, and since normal methods keep failing, Gabamaru decides to use his fireman ninjutsu. His goal is creating a fire, which since it's huge, the smoke generated concentrates around Roku's head, leaving him no choice but to crouch. When that happens, Sagiri finally gets one of the things she wants most, pulling off a perfect cut without pain. Having finished, the group has to run, cause the smoke makes them easy targets, but before doing that Sagiri says goodbye to Genji, who's been dead for a while now. Right after they leave, some beasts show up, so Gabamaru offers to keep watching the direction they came from. After following that path for a while, they run into Yuzuriha and Senta who had ditched them, but what's in front of them is way more important, a village. If this island is the real paradise, they might find the enlightened celestial immortals. The group debates how to sneak into the village, but before they can finish, Gabamaru notices someone's watching them. Following her they see it's a super strong girl along with a tree man. Gabamaru leaves the tree man for Yuzuriha while he goes after the girl with Sagiri. After taking a hit that almost kills him, Gabamaru loses his patience and hangs the girl from a tree, which makes her start crying. Sagiri takes charge of calming her down, and when they meet up with Centaur's duo again, the tree man suddenly speaks. He tells them in exchange for returning the girl, he'll take them to the village and talk about the elixir. That convinces the group, so they follow him to the ruined village. Once there, the tree man agrees to answer their questions. He tells them his name is Hoko, and the girl's Mei. The island is called Kotaku and is divided into 3 zones, the beach and forest area called Aishu, the area called Hojo where the village is, and the center of the island is Horai, where the elixir of life is. Legends used to call it Tan, and said it was the source of eternal life. They'll confirm the elixir's existence when they find the celestial Tensen, beings who neither die nor age, and are so perfect they stay beautiful forever. The bad part is they're terrifyingly powerful, and no one can beat them. Every human who reaches the island ends up killed by them, then turned into flowers and turned into tan. Later during Mei's bath, Sagiri helps her wash her hair, where Gabamaru tells her she shouldn't feel bad about the scar she has, and that way Mei gets closer to them. While Tenza and Nurugai keep looking for a current to get them off the island, they run into the Tensen, Jujin. This one is stronger than them, and has the ability to regenerate super easily, but thanks to his quick sword handling, Tenza gets an opening for them to run into the forest before getting killed. Even so, the guy catches up, but right then Cheyenne shows up chopping Jin's head off. Even though he's blind, fighting is no problem for this Azeman. After escaping, Cheyenne tells them he was near the beach cause he was also trying to get out of here, so he decided to wait and find someone else to escape with. Changing the subject, Cheyenne asks his disciple why he's looking after the criminal instead of executing her. Tenza tells him just like he pulled him out of the misery he was in, and trained him to become an Azeman, he wants to do the same with Nurugai. Out of all the criminals on the island, she's the one who deserves the pardon most, and a second chance like he got. Cheyenne's surprised by his words, cause Tenza wasn't someone who cared about others, so he agrees to let Nurugai live. Suddenly they get ambushed by Jin. In a quick move, Cheyenne pushes them away from the guy, even though he takes a slash to the neck doing it, seeing that Tenza tries facing Jin, but he's not on his level. Just one of his hits leaves the kid unable to stand. Checking his body, Tenza knows he's gonna die, but still he has to protect the person who pulled him out of misery, who believed in him despite being a thug, and who despite his stubbornness, patiently taught him to be a samurai, so he won't let him die. Despite his wounds, Tenza gets back up to buy time for his teacher to escape with Nurugai. His determination is so strong, he actually lands some good hits on Jean. Seeing Cheyenne coming to help, Tenza tries telling them to run, but his throat's been cut. Still, Cheyenne gets his intention, so he turns around, grabs Nurugai and runs, while Tenza keeps fighting to his last breath, thanking Cheyenne in his mind for believing in him, apologizing for dying there. Anyway, he wishes Nurugai luck, so she can fulfill her wishes. After reaching a safe spot, Cheyenne stops. Nurugai's freaking out cause he left the kid when he's his master, so she plans going back, but Cheyenne tells her Tenza was more than his student, and that's why he has to respect his last wish, and he can't let his sacrifice be in vain. Back with Gabimaru, he couldn't wait for Senta to finish gathering info on the Tensen, so that night while everyone slept, he decided to scout Horai on his own. After crossing a forest of praying trees, and following the direction they pointed, Gabimaru reaches Horai's gates, but before opening it he runs into Jujin. He planned letting Gabimaru go, but when he learns he knows about humans turning into Tan, he can't ignore him anymore and has to end him. The fight's inevitable. Gabimaru, despite being at a disadvantage cause of Jin's regeneration, forces the Immortal to use his last resort to kill him, demonic resurrection, which turns him into a monster way stronger than his original form. Gabimaru tries dodging, but his body can't move anymore from the previous overexertion, so he gets used as a punching bag. When he thinks he's about to die, Mei shows up, who's been following him the whole time. She creates a barrier to protect them, making them fall off the cliff to escape. By morning the group notices Gabimaru and Mei are gone, so guided by Hoko, they head to Horai to look for them. On the way they ask the tree who the Tensen really are. Turns out they are 7 immortal hermits, but originally they were just 1. The hermit attained enlightenment, becoming a god, and divided himself into 7 individuals. The supreme god Rain, the great emperor Jufa, he who occupies the throne Mudan, the wise Taofa, the origin of all Jujin, Prince Guifa and Emperor Ran. All have the same features and voices, but their personalities and roles are different. That's something Hoko learned when he was a kid. He tells them back then he was human, just like all the island's inhabitants, and they had long lives. However, everyone turns into trees before dying. At that same time, the Immortals were having a meeting to discuss the humans who infiltrated the island, where they scolded Jujin for letting 2 escape, and cause one almost killed him during his watch. Rain warns them not to underestimate these humans, cause they're different from all the ones they've killed before. That wasn't a baseless guess, cause the Cho brothers, despite getting beaten almost to death by Jufa, escaped the pit where they throw humans to turn them into Tan. Back with Gabimaru, after falling off the cliff, he and Mei were unconscious on a riverbank. At the same time Gabimaru wakes up, Tamiya and Fuchi arrive at the spot. Gabimaru instantly goes on alert, but he's wounded and vulnerable from the fight. Tamiya sees his state, so plans killing him, however Fuchi stops him, suggesting they get info first, but before they can, Gabimaru does the unthinkable, gets on his knees in front of them to beg for an alliance. Gabimaru realizes they're strong, and even though he could try killing them, it's more likely they'd wipe him out. Plus Gabimaru ain't the Hollow anymore. If he really wants the elixir, he has to be willing to use every means to survive. Fuchi asks why he humiliated himself just to ask for help. Gabimaru tells them about the Tensen, and how they regenerate even when cut and burned. Tamiya's the first to accept the alliance, cause it's his perfect chance to do something legendary, and be remembered for his strength. Fuchi accepts too, cause now he's hyped to dissect a Tensen. Suddenly Mei, who'd been ignored, wakes up, and to Gabimaru's surprise, she's grown and can talk, so he asks her if she knows a way to beat the Tensen. The girl tells them the key is the Tao. That's the only sentence they understand, cause the girl still hasn't learned to speak properly. Back with Chobe, after the brothers climb out of the pit, Toma suggests they get off the island, but his brother's only wish is murdering whoever threw them in there. Thanks to his recent fight, he found the Tensen's weak spot, the lower abdomen. He noticed when regenerating, they always start from the bottom. Their talk gets cut off by a weird creature. He tells them he's an evolved monster, who came to inspect by order of his bosses, their disciples and right-hand men of the Tensen, so he politely asks the brothers to go back to the pit. That's impossible for Chobe to accept, but even though he tries resisting in the fight, the monster's stronger than them. Just like the Tensen, he manipulates the Tao and without much effort slices his throat, but unlike his expectations, Chobe's still breathing, and when he tries throwing him back in the pit, the kid gets up and watches his throat regenerate. Now he can feel the Tao, and the Tao is the life force found in all living and non-living things. It can be manifested and used to become stronger, and once you master it completely, you'll have godlike powers. Every moment that passes, the Tao inside Chobe's body grows. The monster thinks something must have happened in the pit, so he'll kill him before he gets stronger, but Chobe won't give him that win. No matter how much it hurts his body, he'll do whatever it takes to keep his brother safe. Chobe starts beating the monster, proving his theory that these beings' weak spot is the navel. As the Tal inside him grows, his physical abilities increase. Now he sees the monster's attacks he couldn't before thanks to his adaptation ability, which spells the end for the monster. Before he dies, Cho plans getting every bit of info possible about the Tensen from him. Back with Gabamaru's group, they suddenly get attacked by giants, and while they're fighting them, one monster that had been standing completely still the whole time grabs Mei. He tells the girl he'd been secretly looking for her, because Rain's orders stopped him from doing it openly. Turns out Mei used to live with the Tensen in the palace, but she got kicked out and later escaped Horai. The wizard reveals to everyone that the girl is the same kind as the Tensen. She feeds on humans. Even so, Gabamaru can't help defending her when Mei begs for her life. That pisses the monster off, so he brings out his clone, or kinda, a version of himself that controls the butterflies. Tamiya wasn't gonna let this chance for revenge on his hand slip away, so he's the most hyped, but the monster manipulates Tal perfectly, so our group can't do any damage to him. The monster asks why they're protecting a girl who has zero connection to them. Gabamaru answers that maybe in the past he would have left her to fend for herself, but ever since he got to the island he's changed, and now if someone who helped him is in trouble, he's gonna help. To the monster his words mean nothing, and since he's sure he's gonna beat them, when Gabamaru asks about the Tal, the monster answers just to be nice. He explains that Tal exists inside all creation, and there are 5 types of training to increase it: physical exercises, breathing exercises, meditation, energy cultivation, and intimacy arts. Yeah, you know, for that last one, users like him need another person to train with. Because unlike the Tensen who have both yin and yang energy, they only have yang, so to complete his training he needed Mei, since even though she's the same nature as the Tensen, she only has yin energy. That's why she was expelled from the palace and sentenced by Rain to either die abandoned or live in Horai as a training partner for the monsters. Gabamaru says there's no way he's letting them take Mei, so in one last push, Gabamaru and Tamiya face the monsters, but with a metamorphosis technique they get even stronger. At that point there was literally no chance of winning. Or at least that's what everyone thought, because right then Fuchi tells him he managed to understand Mei's words, and orders Gabamaru to reach a peaceful state of mind to connect with the Tao. Now that he's in the perfect moment to feel it, Gabamaru only needed that explanation to know what to do. Even though he needs more training, with his own version of Tao, Gabamaru manages to fight both monsters at the same time. While fighting, Gabamaru realizes that now that he's accepted his own weaknesses, for the first time he can sense other people's weaknesses. His Tao power is so strong that he's now on par with a Tensen. Before ending his life, Gabamaru asks how many more like him he'll run into. The monster already knows he's done for, so he answers that the Tensen ordered 3 Tao monsters to watch the humans. On the other side, Sagiri's group finally reaches Horai's gates, but the second they step in, someone chops Hoko's head off. Seeing who did it, Yuzuriha tries to run but gets stopped by the guy. Even though she's scared, Sagiri draws her sword to protect the girl, and when asked who he is, Hoko answers for him, telling them he's the celestial Tensen Mudan. Seeing Senta shocked that Hoko's still alive, Mudan explains that creatures like Hoko don't die that easily. But now his tree transformation will speed up. Hoko accepts his fate. He only hoped that when he died, his spirit would be invited to Horai. Mudan crushes that hope and reveals everything they learned in the village was lies told to keep order. The truth is the island is a giant laboratory where they study life. Hoko and everyone else were prototypes born from experiments, and the lab rats were the humans who arrived on the island. Mudan tells them the main job of humans is to produce tan. Plus, there's no elixir like they're looking for on the island. Although tan is essential for the Tensen, for humans it just turns them into plants. Yuzuriha uses the time Mudan is talking to free herself and slice him into pieces. The group tries to escape, but before they can, Mudan regenerates his body and attacks Yuzuriha. He notices she was using tiny amounts of Tal in her attacks, so he plans to capture and cultivate her to turn her into tan. When Senta sees his target is Yuzuriha, he draws his sword to protect her. Combining their attacks they try to stop Mudan. Sagiri sees it's not working, so she asks Hoko if there's a way to beat Mudan. The tree tells her the only way is to destroy his tanden. If it's cut, the Tao flow to his body gets interrupted and he can't regenerate anymore. But even if they manage to break the tanden, their blows need to contain Tao to actually hurt Mudan. Luckily Sagiri has the ability to temporarily boost her Tao, so her attacks are the only ones doing damage. The 3 come up with a plan to beat Mudan. Senta and Yuzuriha will protect Sagiri while she goes for the tanden. After a ton of effort, Mudan's own overconfidence dooms him, and the group finally takes down a celestial Tensen. While resting, Senta tells Sagiri she can trust Yuzuriha, and when she asks if he has feelings for her, he says he just envies how free she is, the total opposite of him. Senta tells her that as a kid he dreamed of becoming an artist, but family rules forced him to be an Azeman. He hated killing people, so he just shut his heart and met everyone's expectations. That's why he admires Yuzuriha so much. Suddenly, the group notices flowers growing around them. Yuzuriha almost gets pierced, but Senta uses his body to shield her and flowers start growing on him. Turns out right then Mudan activated demonic resurrection. The guy says he's gonna kill them, but just when he's about to, Cheyenne shows up to save them and is ready to give his life in the fight. With him there everyone feels relieved because Cheyenne has already mastered Tao without even seeing, but even though he looks ready to win, Mudan proves stronger and injects poison into Cheyenne. So Sagiri and Nurugai jump into the fight to help him. They team up with Yuzuriha and combine their skills from afar to distract Mudan so Cheyenne can get close and cut the tanden. Right near the tanden, Cheyenne's confused about exactly where to strike. At that moment Senta shows up saying the tanden is the core, and together they finally defeat a celestial Tensen. Still, they're completely wrecked, and Yuzuriha gets super cold and realistic about Senta's state, saying since he's already dying he'd just be dead weight now. Sagiri's heartbroken because just a minute ago Senta had opened up to her and wanted a happy life. At that moment Yuzuriha lends Senta her shoulder and tells him to spend his final moments thinking about what makes him happy. Senta doesn't think about his family or his clan. He thinks about Yuzuriha's warm, free-spirited embrace, the thing he admired the most, and with that everyone says goodbye to Senta. Right after, they enter Horai. On the other side, Gabamaru wakes up, but something's off because he doesn't remember anything. He doesn't recognize anyone and doesn't even remember his wife. Meanwhile, while the others rest from the battle and recap everything they learned about Tao, Cheyenne talks about the dangers of using too much of that power. Losing memories, losing your humanity, even dying. At the same time Yuzuriha tells Sagiri the elixir doesn't actually exist, everything she heard about it is a lie, even what Gabamaru told her about seeing his chief alive after getting stabbed. That's why she repeats that maybe all of this is an illusion, even Gabamaru having a wife. So now they decide to fight so everyone gets out of this island alive, while Gabamaru looks totally lost inside a cave. Post-credit scene. The Yamada clan shows up sending more monitors to the island to watch the members already there. And that's it, we're waiting for Season 2 arriving in January, and we will bring it to you. Remember to subscribe and drop Paradise in the comments, because only the real ones make it to the end of the video, and that proves you stayed till the last second. Thank you so much for watching our stuff, and I'll see you in the next video.